Let's take a deep breath. Universe, help us to get out of our own way so that we can serve and be channels of love for others through our conversation. Reiki, Reiki, Reiki. And so it is.
It's great to see you.
It's so lovely to be here with you, Joshua.
Thank you, Neve. If you were a candle, what would you smell like?
Ooh, that's a fun question. If I was a candle, well, the first thing that came to me was lavender. So I guess I'll just go with lavender.
Remember we talked about saying just.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going with lavender?
Lavender.
If you were a superhero, what would your powers be?
Do I only get one superpower?
No, I made it plural. As many as you want.
I would definitely be able to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be able to telelocate.
I consistently get that one. Like people consistently tell me that one. And those used to be my top two. I think they still pretty much are. But recently I've been realizing that I have been teleporting because
Right?
I've been traveling so frequently. I take a moment and I stop and reflect, and I have to ask myself, wait, where am I right now? Where was I the last time? When was I there? This past week, I went from DC to North Carolina to South Carolina, all the way out to Mississippi, and then to a different city in Mississippi. I've been all over, and I'm going somewhere else. And that swiftness, and it really alters the way that we receive time, I feel.
I like how you said that, receive time, since it's technically an illusion.
Yes, I consistently say that time is a religion.
Yeah, and teleportation is an actual ability that humanoids can discover.
Yeah, I believe the Buddha did it to help like his followers cross over a body of water.
Well, currently there is a monastery in Alaska where the monks are on an island and they have no
Mhm.
boats, but the townspeople will see them in the town at the
Mhm.
market. So it's currently still a thing that we can achieve. Although with all the cities, which are the yogic powers, uh, you know, they come from the spiritual journey, not necessarily seeking power, right? That's not really how you get them. So, but I always
Mhm.
found them very fascinating. Like, well, I
Right.
hope as I progress spiritually that they are given to me. Be
For
cool.
sure, for sure. Yeah. What do you think is the smallest step towards obtaining them, or that ability, rather?
Becoming love.
Fair. Speaking of love, we've been doing a lot on love recently. We've been exploring what 7 or 8 Greek words for love.
Yes. Yes. And this is our follow-up conversation from our first conversation about our self-love / other love journey.
Right. Um, can you tell me a bit about like what you learned, or?
Well, it was fascinating because I was in the process of moving homes
Mhm.
during this focus on the different words. So what we did is focused on different words, different weeks for different nuances of love.
Mhm.
And I found that just having that focus of self-love in different forms while moving, which is, can be a pretty hectic and out of your environment's changing. It was really beautiful and grounding for me to come back to self-love in different ways throughout that move. And it took a couple weeks. So it was a couple different words during the focus. And I was so grateful that you invited me to join you on that journey, because I found myself pausing more and showing myself love in different ways more during the move than I think I would have.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. What
It's
about
beautiful.
you? What?
I because originally I believe we had committed to focusing on one word a week.
Right.
And I found that not only did some words like come back, but others took a longer season to work through, or really to fully dive deeper into, I should say.
Yeah, I love that. So which
Yeah.
one do you think lasted the longest for you?
I believe it was I want to say storge, that like familial type of love. Was very serendipitous that I was heading back to my hometown around that week. And so I had an example of how my parents loved me, and that those acts of service that go into love, and those chores that we willingly do within families for each other, or that we are obligated to do. But then that was able to be contrasted once I was spending time with my friends who are adopted family, and
Mm.
allowing them to love me. And that ended up bleeding into Ludus, which is like the fun, like flirty, playful type of love. And that allowed, because while these people were taking care of me and I was opening up to receiving that, I was able to allow myself to honor my youth and enjoy being young again. I played video games, I watched cartoons, I played board games, I hung out with like kids. It was a beautiful season of just going back to that youth. And I think that even though we grow up and we put away our childish things, we should still strive to honor that Ludus young love.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're all really important, and should be reflected on and brought back in when you notice, oh, I'm not being playful, or I'm not being romantic with myself, or I'm not loving
Right.
myself unconditionally right now. Like, oh man.
Yeah.
I love that you played. I did explore these words a little bit with Tanzan, and it was kind of funny because in his class, they're in first grade, but they all have decided that they're in love with each other, and they all have
Yeah.
their first crushes going on. And
Hmm.
so I had a conversation with him about love and being in love, and explaining to a 7-year-old that being in love is different than loving was challenging and a really
Hmm.
fun conversation.
Yeah. And speaking of that differentiation, like I remember feeling the need, excuse me, to distinguish that, like, oh, like if I liked someone, or if I was like attracted to someone, it's like, well, yeah, like I love them, but I'm not like in love with them. And I remember taking a couple seasons to work out whatever that even meant, because I've been on this love journey for a long time, trying to figure out what it means, because it's such a broad thing.
Yeah, it is. And I would think that, I mean, I guess in love would be the infatuation
Hmm.
one. Which one is the infatuation one?
It could be a couple, right? Because there's definitely like,
Well, Ludos, I feel like you have the flirtation and the fun of being in love.
right.
You have a little bit of Eros.
Hmm.
Oh, I think the one word that we didn't go over was
Because
like,
Ludus does also have that nuance of like puppy love, which could be infatuation.
yeah, that probably is that one.
Yeah.
But I remember, just discovering on my own as I was growing up that different differentiation between like being in love and loving. And, I think most of us when we're young and we first fall in love, we feel like that's what love is
Hmm.
the in love. And it's definitely different. And I have seen in my own life and in others how once that in love puppy stage fades, sometimes the relationships fall apart.
Right.
And it's kind of because they're nurturing, or I was nurturing something that was a little bit more
Hmm.
shallow, a little, it was a little bit more fun, and it wasn't bad. I don't mean shallow as bad, but there wasn't the depth of
Right.
like unconditional love or agape love in
Hmm.
there.
And speaking of how they fall apart, I remember a dear friend of mine, uh, one of my soulmates, I would say. Uh, he made a very intentional habit of thanking people for the little things because he believed that once you stop doing that, like things will like fall apart or like you take them for granted, you know? And there are those nuances. I'm sorry, there are those moments when you're infatuated and you're really trying to like woo someone or show them how much you like them, you know? And that's a big part of the I don't know the like inception of that relationship, you know, or the commencement of it even. And once we have them, so to speak, or once we agree that, oh yeah, we're a thing now, sometimes people fall off and they stop doing those little sweet romantic ludus gestures, you know.
Yeah, totally. And I think also I'm part of my journey with love has been how to hack. How do I hack the in love feelings so that I can love someone and be in a was it pragma, in a committed companionship, and still have
Right.
the eros and the ludos and the in love feelings,
Hmm.
and not let that die. And that has been an interesting journey, and it does speak to exactly what you're saying, is continuing to do those little things. Like I take the dry erase marker sometimes and will write love notes to my partner on the mirror, because that's like the kind of cutesy thing I would do if we were first getting together.
Right.
uh so it keeps the sparks flying, and I think that you, me, everyone, I think we can keep the in love feelings around, and that kind of puppy love, at least waves of that, but it really does have to be nurtured, like you're saying your friend does, your soulmate friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Which love do you want to talk about next?
um I mean, I've been thinking about
Which one?
philia, the authentic friendships soulmate
Hmm. So
love.
like the philia? Nice. Yeah. And that's the love that I have for that soulmate that I just mentioned. Like we're like brothers, you know, like a wolf pack even. Like I have that type of love. Also, even the way that penguins like huddle up and endure hard times together, um, like that. But continue.
Well, that would what you described, I think, would also include storge, because it's familial and protective, like kin.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's interesting. I have noticed, and what I wanted to kind of comment on with that is that the soulmate, soulmates can be and look like anything. And I think that they're relationships where I mean, like if we could describe some of our soulmate friends, it's where even if you don't talk for a while or apart, there's like this
Mhm.
connection that's undeniable.
For sure.
I have several of those, and I am very grateful
Hmm.
to recognize the soulmates, journers with me. I think it's a really beautiful thing.
I completely agree with you, and and I'm sure that because like you think about like philia and how it's brotherly love, and so it makes sense that there are nuances of storge in there because that is familial, you know. But you're right, there is something so much deeper and like unyielding or unbreakable with those bonds. You can just reconnect with someone. There's no need to like rekindle anything because it's still burning just as brightly.
Right. And I think that it's For me, there's been one or two people who have come, like, circled around. Like, I don't think they ever left because there was this soul bond with them. But I realized even in the last month while we've been on this journey that I was unconsciously lying to myself or in denial of the amplitude, or like the power of this soul connection, and how it didn't go anywhere, and starting to rekindle or nurture it. You don't have to really rekindle it because it's already on fire, but right,
Right.
not being in denial opened up my heart chakra so much. I
Mhm.
felt so much expansion from realizing that I had kind of been in denial of, this soul bond that I had with someone. I was like, wow, I feel so full now, not being in denial. That was a
Yeah.
huge thing. So, anyone listening, if you know that you have a soul bond with someone and you haven't talked to them in a while or reached out, like, I encourage you to at least send them a note just saying, like, I'm thinking about you, or you're awesome,
Right.
or something.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I I made another connection like that last night, and it was so serendipitous, but like beautiful.
Wow.
I I had left my jacket at the bar like the night before last. So I was in there just to grab my jacket. Like there were so many people in there, I didn't really want to stay because I'm very much an introvert these days. But I'm just waiting for the bartender to see me so she can tell me where my jacket's at. And this guy walks up and he like comments on the ukulele that's strapped to my back. And so he talks about how he wants to play it, like wants to learn how to play it, but he just would never do it. So I take it off me, I put it on him. I teach him a couple chords, and then like we just start talking. He starts telling me how great I am, and I'm like, I like deflect those things. And we just like look at each other, and then we're like, he's like, I like you. I was like, I like you too, and we just kept like running back into each other and smiling at each other, and then hugging and talking, and then ultimately we just expressed that we loved each other. We had just met, barely a conversation, but we knew that there was something deep within us, and like that we were bright and on fire in a way, and we saw that in each other, and so we just admitted to ourselves and that we loved each other.
Right. And that made you feel full, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I think there is a look of soul recognition. I remember with my partner, when one of the first times that I talked to him, we had this like gaze, and it was this, oh, we know each other. Even if
Right.
it's the first time in this life, there is a
Hmm.
soul recognition here. So I think that's one sign. It's a hard thing to describe, but it's like you lock eyes and there's a soul recognition. Something in you just
Hmm.
feels more at peace and more whole.
Yeah.
I don't know how else you would add, if you want to add to that, because it's definitely, if someone hasn't had that or hasn't trained themselves to recognize that, it's definitely a good thing to nurture.
Definitely. This is why eye contact is so beautiful.
It's important, really
It's
important.
important. Very important. Extremely. And there's this one other soulmate. We were just like cuddle buddies, but we really enjoyed just breathing each other in. And like that's a whole thing in itself. And it was very palpable, and so much more than just like lust or eros. It was just familiar and just very nourishing. It was like breathing for the first time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I really feel like Eros is so much better if you already have a soul bond, or if you're already in a
Mhm.
commitment, or when it's like a fleeting Eros thing, sometimes afterwards you might not feel the fullness, but when you can really find someone with that type of connection where it's so natural and it feels like almost familial. It feels like, oh
Mhm.
man, I know you from whenever, and I feel you. And I think another thing about soulmates is they bring out the best parts of you, or they inspire creativity, or they like set your heart on fire. There's like these different things
Mhm.
that you just don't feel necessarily from other relationships that can help us recognize, oh, this person is a soulmate, or I have a soul bond with them.
My computer was being weird for a moment. Bear with me. um, and I say all that to say that I did not hear what you just said.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. What I was saying is that soulmates bring out like creativity, inspiration, uh, set your heart on fire. These are some signs that it's a bond that cannot be broken. Even if you choose to be in denial of it or walk away, that bond is there. And I love that about one of my soulmates, just bringing the best out of me, and like the creativity that comes from, texting or talking to this person. It's like, wow, I feel like I have a huge fan. Like this person is a huge fan of Neve, and it feels
Yeah,
so good, and
right.
I trust that I am that for other people too.
Definitely.
Any
It's so
other
good.
oh, sorry.
No, I like the thing that was so good. Go ahead.
Is there any other things or ways to describe what you feel or experience from being with a soulmate?
Recently, I have been of the mindset that soulmates are companions in this lifetime that help you get to where you're wanting to go, or to help you reach, like you said, reach those goals and accomplish those things. They bring different things out of you. And yeah, they help us grow. Like, and sometimes it may feel as though it's bad or negative, but in the same way that plants need pruning in order to continue to grow and thrive, sometimes we do as well. And like sometimes we need those souls that get under our skin to help us be emboldened in some ways, or to release some things. Because during the shutdown, or yeah, my one of my soulmates, we painted a lot of our traumas onto each other, and it helped us to grow and heal a lot. But in the process, it wasn't the prettiest thing,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's sometimes, I think for me recently, one of my soul bonded friends, I realized like, oh, like you are reflecting back to me some things that I don't really want reflected back.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of what I think of when you're like, oh, pruning. Yep. It's like, wow, I feel so much love and energy and soul cosmic connection with you. And in your human body with your ego structures, you are reflecting things that I need to look at and grow
Right.
from.
Like I remember I don't yell often. Like I don't even honor my anger as often as I should, which is what another soulmate taught me. But I remember one night yelling that I don't feel heard. I yelled that. Uh, and it wasn't until a couple months later, when I was at my parents' house, that I was talking to my dad about something, and he was he wasn't present. Like he wasn't looking at me. He was like on his phone. And then I look at him, and I gently say, I don't feel heard. And my mom's in the room, and she like looks up, and she gives me like a thumbs up, and like is like, good job. Because I'm sure she has experienced that with him as well. But because of my soulmate, I was able to express probably something that had been like I've been carrying for a very long time. And my dad apologized, and now he knows. Now my dad's able to work on that. And I was able to speak my truth.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations, because it's a hard situation. And that's like, It does. It frees you. It helps you evolve and grow. And that's an important thing I think that anyone listening can take from this conversation is if you don't feel seen or heard, really lovingly, like from your heart, compassionately sharing that is important. And I think that that kind of brings me to one of the things I wanted to share in this conversation is recognizing toxicity in relationships. And when you don't feel seen or heard and it's a pattern and you can speak to it and say like, you know, I love you. I don't feel seen and heard right now, you know, whatever
Mhm.
else you need to say. And that goes unrecognized or unacknowledged. That's a sign that there needs to be like some adjustment.
For sure. Yes.
And I think that as we, you know, as we love ourselves more deeply, we start to really be able to be in relationships with others who love themselves deeply, and the types of negative relationship patterns that we learned or were inadvertently taught can start to fall away,
Hmm.
which is why I think the self-love is just so paramount. And I think another thing along those lines that you know, took me, I think, a while to understand is that if you don't love yourself in some way, shape, or form, you're still using other people to feel loved.
That's not good. And it's never going to be enough, you know,
Nope. Nope.
because if you're not the one validating yourself and your worth, anything else that's poured into that like bottomless pit of a well will not feel like enough.
Right. And it's usually unconscious. I mean, I don't think this is generally a conscious thing until it is that
Mhm.
you're needing attention or needing something from other people to fill you up.
Mhm.
That's not normally, you know, it takes a while and usually like a big crisis moment to realize, oh, I wasn't loving myself and I was expecting this other person to fill that hole that I really need to fill on my own.
Right.
It's important stuff. I mean, it takes a while to learn this. You know, it takes a while to get to that point so that you can have healthy, loving relationships where it's like, I love my relationship with the divine. I love myself, and now I can love a partner.
Beautiful. That's really good. Which level are we talking about next?
I mean, which one haven't we talked about? We've been jumping all over. I think it's great though.
It's good. And it also that also gives us the opportunity to see and reflect on how they like weave into each other.
Totally. And also, you know, what we were just talking about with the self love and really how that's paramount before you have a healthy and loving relationship with someone else. I think also what happens when you start to deeply nurture your relationship with source and with yourself and really love yourself, that's when it becomes easier to recognize soulmates when they come into your life, or even um, a spark or a special kind of energy that you might feel with someone else. And I think we can miss that if we're still
Mhm.
using other people unconsciously to fill our gaps.
For sure. I completely agree with that.
I don't know if you can recognize those, like for me, at least as I've grown spiritually and grown in my self love, now it's easier to recognize these soul bonds and it's easier to feel the subtle energy sparks that I might have with someone that I don't know if I was really attuned to, at least when I was younger. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes it's really obvious, you know, some sparks are pretty fire, but
And and then I think that's the thing, and that's the thing with the different types of love. And I think that's also the thing with the way that we are groomed or conditioned by society to view love. Like I think all of that ends up getting jumbled so that when we see someone and we feel something about them, we haven't been given all of these tools that we're talking about right now. We haven't been given all of these lenses to look at people through. We have only been given like maybe the fairy tale sense of love or like the lustful type of wanting someone. We don't realize, oh, this is someone that I love brotherly. Ah, this one reminds me of home. Oh wow, I love this one with all of the agape in my heart.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because my friend now, Ryan, is coming to visit soon, and I was reflecting because I love him so much, but I don't really think it's a soul bond, but there's a
Mhm.
kindred spirit bond. Like we've always been able to be ludos, like playful and
Mhm.
flirtatious and fun. Like we used to throw marshmallows in each other's mouths across the cafeteria in college. We were just
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
He came up, the first thing he ever said to me was, "Are you guys playing Pokemon?" Because I was playing Pokemon cards. And, it's just like a very fun and yeah, like playful type of love. But I also feel like he's family. And I feel like that was nurtured from us being married so young and being part of each other's family. So even though we're not together in a pragma, a committed companionship per se, there's respect and honor and familial protective love for him,
Yeah.
which is really, it's a really beautiful thing. But I had to really reflect because there's so much ludos and storge and pragma there that I'm like, well, is it a soulmate thing? And I don't necessarily believe that it is, but it's like been created to be almost in the same depth of a soulmate. Like we'll probably be soulmates in our next life. We'll be like, oh, hey.
See you again. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah. How do you define soulmate?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I think that for me, the way that I think about a soulmate is someone who has traveled through life with me in a different life. And so there's a connection that crosses time and space in a different way. How would you define soulmate?
That's a good question. Let me think. I'm also about to relocate because my signal's being weird. So bear with me. Soulmates. Uh, Typically, I had been viewing it as someone that I am deeply connected to, like someone that I just like someone that I'm deeply connected to and something bigger than this, just this current existence.
Right.
Like I said earlier, it's reminiscent of someone that is here to help you along your path on this journey with your goals. It's a like, and not even like partner in the like relationship setting or like couple mentality, but just like a companion and ally, just someone that is there to assist you. You know, it could be like that simple. But as I grow, it shifts and it changes. Uh, because in the same way that you talked about how you can meet someone and you can like see that spark or recognize that spark or just notice like, hey, there's something about this person. I walked into a coffee shop in Norfolk and I instantly felt something. It's like there's something about this place, and I didn't know what, and so because I didn't know what, I just started assuming whatever had been relative before. So I was like, I wish I could work here. I could learn a lot here. And then I go up to the counter to order my drink, and the barista is super cool, and she comments on my ukulele. It's always the ukulele.
I need to start carrying mine around.
You should. Highly recommend it. Nice icebreaker, and it just works.
And it's
And
such a happy, fun thing.
agreed. And so she ended up coming up to the table a little bit later, and yeah, she was really cool. And like and she ends up telling me that there's something special about me. So she noticed it as well. Uh, I think I go back a second time. And at that point, effortlessly, by the time we're leaving, we're saying "I love you" to each other because we feel it. And ultimately, I ask her to mentor me because that's what I've been striving to do. I've been striving to learn from whoever will like teach me if I think that there's something within them that I can glean. Uh, and so yeah, I even consider like her to be a soulmate, and like not in the romantic sense because she's very much married, but there's definitely a deeper connection, and even through like Abba or the universe or whatever greater force that you call home, uh, we see that and we're connected within that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about defining soulmate because that's just a fun thing to think about. I definitely would add to, not only is it someone that you've journeyed with in a past life, but I think it's about spiritual awakening and
Mhm. Brilliant. Yes.
remembering your truth of who
Mhm.
you are, remembering that this life is just a life,
Right.
and then awakening in different ways depending
Mhm.
on the soulmate.
Yeah. Definitely like awakening and healing are like big aspects of that.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to comment on. I've kind of moved, I have a trigger now with the word healing
Oh,
because I I think it's more about remembering.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much healing. I mean, there is some healing. Like I think healing makes sense when you've been in a toxic relationship and you need to heal, or
Mhm.
you've been eating poorly and you need to heal your gut or whatever. But as far as like spiritually, I think it's not that we're all healing. I think it's all we're awakening and remembering.
That's fair. And that makes sense. I think that could be a layer of it as well. Because I do believe that in our in our youth, no matter like what age range that is, that we are programmed into some unhealthy mindsets and habits. And so remembering that those aren't our truths or working to rise above those things, um, is kind of what we're here to do with each other,
Right. That we're not our thoughts or our learned behavioral patterns, that there's something deeper that we are, and that we can actually uh, control and change our thoughts and our patterns. I mean, that's definitely part of the spiritual awakening.
Mm,
That's kind of what yoga is about, right?
right.
You're not your mind. You're in union with the divine. Oh, okay.
It's good. I'm going to take a season to switch out words for healing.
Ooh, did I just inspire that?
Yes.
Oh,
You did.
lovely.
Right. Right. Right.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious if there is anything else on your heart or that you feel called to share on the self-love journey, like loving yourself in all these different ways so that you can love others in these different ways, because I have a few closing questions for you whenever we're ready for that.
Fascinating. Um, I think that you should start just going with the questions. Uh, And if something pops up, I'm like, oh, by the way, I have an answer to that other one now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of my I started asking interview questions the last two interviews that I did.
Mhm.
Um, so one of the first questions is, what is your favorite song to listen to right now to level up, like to get that hit of joy?
Hit of joy. Uh, so I have joy.
Well, it could be inspiration or just like it could be self-love, but it's like the song that makes you feel more positive, or like will bring up your mood and your energy, that you're just like, oh, this is my go-to for that right now.
It switches with the seasons, but now I really want to at some point in my day or week explore joy deeper, because we know what happiness is, but also happiness and joy aren't the same thing, right?
Oh, no, they're not. So the way I think of them is, I think of happiness as like a fleeting feeling, and
Hmm.
joy as a state of being. So joy is related to your spiritual practice. Like, I think that the one of the challenges or issues with our culture and materialism is like this seeking happiness, which,
Hmm.
you then you get the car and then you're happy for a while, and then you get the whatever, the boat, and then it's like people are searching for this happiness with material things outside of themselves, and then they get it and it's fleeting. Or even in relationship, like we were talking about earlier, if you're searching for a relationship to make you happy, you're missing the point.
Right.
Whereas joy is like cultivated, I believe, through a spiritual practice and through the self-love practice. Because I mean, self-love is a spiritual practice, right?
Right.
Did you like that?
I did. Very much so.
You're smiling.
I am. I am.
Your smile is contagious. It brings
Oh.
me joy. I mean, happiness.
Thank you. Thank you. I started the this love journey inspired me to start cultivating a self-love playlist. And so I'm taking a moment to look at it. I mean, one of the nicest songs up there is Sexy MF, like Sexy Mother.
Right?
And it's this it's like this fun, modern, electric, funky beat. And
Mm.
and it feels like I think the guy's name is Labyrinth. Let me double check. I'm fairly certain that it's Labyrinth. But it feels like Labyrinth is just like looking in the mirror, just hyping himself up. And it's such a good vibration, you know? And another song that's fairly similar to that and also on that playlist is Video by India Ari, in
Oof.
which do you know
I
that
don't.
song?
I think I do, but I just love her. But go on. What is that song for
She's
everyone
great.
listening?
She it's a song where she's doing something very similar. She is affirming herself and affirming her right to not be any of those societal expectations of her. Like it starts off, sometimes I shave my legs, sometimes I don't, you know. And so it's like I'm not the average girl from your videos. My worth is not determined by the price of my clothes, and I will always be India Ari, you know. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love her I Am song and the Truth song. And oh my gosh, I love all of her songs. And I think for me, I mean, I'm not really answering my own question. And as far as like a genre, like my playlist that's similar to yours is a
Mhm.
lot of affirmations and like stepping into the vibration of love and of abundance, of light.
Yeah,
So, what is your favorite movement practice right now?
my favorite movement practice. I would typically default to just saying dancing, you know, because I've been working on that and I've been enjoying the ability to be comfortable and confident dancing alone, which used to be terrifying.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, yeah. But even more than that, and even more simply than that, I really enjoy consistently taking time throughout my existence to just stretch and breathe and to like call myself back to center. And it's nice. And like even if I'm simply just standing there and I start like rotating my shoulders back, I'm like, there's some tension there. work out those kinks real quick, you know, and it leads to me like touching on myself and massaging myself, which is a great self-love practice right there, you know, as I start doing it.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. And it's the thing is it only takes like 30 seconds to a minute to shift from being in the mind to being in the body when you do just one or two simple stretches and breath. So I love that. I think that's great. And also, usually I default to dance too.
What's yours these days?
Probably dance.
Okay.
I do like a dance with myself every morning to like get pumped. And then I continue it on as I'm getting Tanzan ready for school dance parties. They bring, they keep that state of joy as an actual state of joy. So,
Right.
Do you have a health or life tip to share?
Wait, I want to say two things about movement first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Well, one, actually, I'm going to say this one first, and the second one just gonna connect right into that. So the first one is that I just had Angela up here not too long ago. I spoke with her, and she is a movement specialist. She's all big into like flow and like engaging your body, and she spoke about it beautifully uh, last time. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the thing is, like, if you think about like yoga and the way that it teaches the koshas, you have
Mhm.
your physical body, then you have your energy breath body, then you have your mind emotional layer or sheath, then intuition, and then bliss. And if we hang out in the mind layer, which is what most of us are doing all the time in society, right? We get disconnected from our bliss layer and from our intuition. But when we can go into the body with breath,
Mhm.
then we are connecting all those koshas, all of the sheaths, so that we can tap into our bliss. So movement to me is very much related to releasing those endorphins and oxytocin and like all of the beautiful hormones and chemicals that we have that create like love and joy in our life. So I love movement.
Can you expand on like koshas or what a kosha is?
Yeah, so it's literally described as a sheath of
Hmm.
you.
Gotcha.
So it was kind of mind blowing to me when I first started studying yoga and Ayurveda, because I always thought like mind, body, spirit. And
Hmm.
mind, body, spirit is a thing. It is a, triad. And that the teachings also teach koshas, which is, like I was saying, those 5 layers, or I say layers, but they're sheaths. That would be the actual translation. But I think it's helpful as we're evolving as a species to break it up more with the 5, because your breath energy body has its own life. Your mind and emotions have its own life, its own journey. Your body has, your physical journey, and then same with intuition, and then bliss. And I think that we forget that bliss is our human right. And that's why I like sharing about the koshas and teaching about the koshas, because I'm actually doing a divine feminine kosha cleanse retreat in June in Montana. Yeah. And it's kind of about like each day is one of the koshas to really connect with it. And also you can use it in a meditation. I do this a lot with people that I work with and for myself, where you just ask each layer, like, what do you need more of? What do you need less of? And they go with the elements too, right? So the body is earth, and then you have the energy breath body as water, and your mind as fire, your intuition as air, and then the bliss body is ether.
Nice. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So it's pretty fun. I like the elements and the layers of us, because you can really hack anxiety and depression just with the koshas. You can hack your own mind blah with the koshas. So
Yeah.
thanks for asking and letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. Speaking of asking, what was the other question that you asked?
Oh, health or life tip. Do you have a health or life tip for?
Health or life tip. Uh, I have two. So we talked about movement. Um, I encourage people to simply walk. Walking is a great meditation, and it's also movement. And if you're able to do it, try to be outside and walk barefoot. You know, uh, yeah,
I want to add to that.
yeah,
Walking is great. It's a great thing to do if you are having a conflict in a relationship.
hmm
Well, whether you need to just walk away and go walk by yourself, or like for me, when I know I'm going to approach a topic that takes a good amount of mental space, or there might be a little bit of a
hmm
friction in the conversation, I invite the person to go on a walk with me.
brilliant.
So that's a little tip I just wanted to throw in there because it's really helpful. All right.
That's good.
So walking, back to your life health tips.
This is good. And so if you're able to be barefoot when walking, or just step outside and be barefoot for a second, because of science, we know that everything has a charge. And so throughout our day and our existence, we are taking on the energy of things. And so we often are wearing shoes that have like rubber bottoms. And because of that, the energy doesn't escape. So we are absorbing so much extra energy that isn't our own, and we don't release it. So by simply walking outside or being barefoot, you allow that energy to be released back into the earth, and you're able to let go of all that extra energy that is not serving you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's beautiful. And there's these sandals, I forget what they're called, but they're these sandals that someone made that have like basically so the energy can you can still feel the earth's energy in the and absorb. And I really want to get a pair because like, yeah, my friends that have them say it feels like very grounding, like they're walking on the earth. And I'm like,
Wow.
yes. Because sometimes we have to wear shoes.
Right, right. And then, second life tip that comes to mind. This is something I personally do. I strive to keep a rock on me. And by that similar premise, if I'm not able to take my shoes off, I have a rock in my pocket that I can allow any extra energy to flow into that rock by holding it, or to simply absorb some energy if I am feeling lower. And by that same premise, if you are feeling like you are lacking something, you can step outside, barefoot or not, and draw in some energy too.
Yeah, and while we're on this topic, a really great exercise to do is to stand in the sun and absorb the sun's energy. So if
Brilliant.
you can do that barefoot and it happens to be a sunny day, like you will instantly feel charged. So just throw that one in there because the sun is super healing. It's kind of like water, like we need it.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because I was literally thinking about the sun and I wasn't going to say it. So thank you for saying
Perfect. This is what happens with telepathic communication.
it. Good job. Give me 1 second. Cool. One of my soulmates just walked in.
Awesome. Well, this is the last question that I have for you, and we can wrap up. So this is, um, my conversations. I like to talk about how to become love, which is why it was
Mhm.
so great to have you on my podcast and to be on yours. Like it's beautiful. And so I wanted to ask you, how do you become love every day?
How do I become love every day? Hmm. Have you had those moments when you truly see someone? Like, sure, we see people, but like when you really, really see them, and you can see where they've been and who they are and why they take the actions that they take, you just suddenly see them, even if it's just for a glimmer. I believe that a big part of our purpose in existence is to see as many people that way as possible. Because when we see people like that, we understand them and we love them, and we see ourselves in them, and we can love ourselves a little bit more. And So I think a big part of that is removing those societal layers and just really taking them in. And when we're able to do that, that agape unconditional love is effortless because we see them and we understand them. And so yeah.
Yeah, I love that you brought in the compassion and empathy part of that, because I believe that most spiritual traditions, when you really get down to it, it's about seeing the divine in everyone.
Right.
And how do you get to that? I feel like the first step is really being able to see them
Hmm.
and have that compassion and empathy, and even like you seeing into their potential.
Right.
And then that the next layer is everyone's just a sparkly star everywhere, right?
Right.
We're all
Right.
divine.
Right. And we're all connected and part of that same big force, and that's, in my opinion, how we become love.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you for having this lovely
Thank you.
conversation with me. I love you.
I love you. Are you going to answer the question too and tell me how you become love?
Sure. I mean, I think yeah, why not? If you want to throw it back at me. Uh,
Always.
I think that, it really is seeing myself, knowing myself, remembering that I am divine and seeing that in other people. I think that's definitely part of becoming love. But I also think it's all of our whole conversation, you know, practicing self love, going, being on the earth, like, because the more that we fill our cup, the more it overflows. And when we're like lacking or depleted, it's just we're not in the same vibration to really be love or
Hmm.
become love in order to love others.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. And it's 11:11 here.
Of course it is. It's 1:11 here.
That's awesome. Well, that's a sign. Thanks for having this conversation with me.
Thank you for teaching me and helping me grow and for loving me so.
That rhymed.
Yeah, it happens. You know that I'm the age that happy belated birthday. I'm the age that you were when you taught me about going with the flow of the universe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's way better than fighting the flow.
Yes. Not doing that anymore.
Yeah, it's a waste of energy. Another thing that's a waste of energy, and maybe this can be a closing thought, is second guessing ourselves. When we get that intuitive hit, to just follow it.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing that I think it was last year or maybe it was 2020. I realized, oh, I'm like second guessing myself. I don't need to
Mm.
do that anymore. I can just trust. I'm divinely guided anyway. Well, why am I second guessing this?
Right, right, right. Especially if you believe that that greater force has you, then what is there to fear or even second guess?
It
And
saves so much energy.
it does. Like during when I embarked on this travel journey, I took that leap of faith and I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. And there were moments when resistance would arise and I would keep like fighting it. And I learned to just like, no, just stop and go with the flow, be still, which is important because there's a time to move, there's a time to just be still and float and see where you're supposed to be guided to. And I forget that even to this day because I think last week or so, my plans got shifted. And deep down, I knew that everything was going to work out because it always works out. But I was still like getting anxious. And I'm like, why am I getting anxious? And why am I fighting this? And so I just stopped and I was like, what will be? And it ended up being something so beautiful and divinely ordained that I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's such a great reminder that even when we're in a contracted state, or anxious, or unsure, or not knowing what's going on in life, and it feels like things are exploding or imploding, remembering that it will get clear at some point is so helpful to come out of that contraction a little bit and expand, just like you said. So thanks for that extra reminder. So many gems in this conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is my last question for you, like going out.
Okay.
What is one thing you would like to tell the world?
One thing that I would like to tell the world. I would like to tell the world that through awakened sexuality, through awakened sex, they can experience God.
Beautiful.
It's really beautiful. It's pretty freaking amazing experience. And
Yeah.
I don't think the world is and it's not a generally known thing. And I would like it to be something that more people experience.
Sweet.
And the first step is knowing that it exists.
Right. Exactly. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for all that you are and all that you do.
Same. It's wonderful sharing this life journey with you.
I agree. I agape you.
I agape you too.
I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
See you later.